My daughter banned me from the front row at her wedding. Then she asked me to pay for the reception, and I brought a folder instead. Not a checkbook, not a bank card, not the soft little smile she expected from a mother who had spent years making herself smaller so her daughter could feel important. Just a plain brown folder. No ribbon, no label, no dramatic envelope. But inside that folder were receipts, emails, bank records, a seating chart, a real estate letter, legal documents, and one sealed note from my late husband that my daughter had never read. By the time dinner was supposed to be served that night, the groom knew the truth. His parents knew the truth. The wedding planner knew the truth. And my daughter stood in front of me in her white dress, asking why I had chosen that moment to humiliate her. I looked at her and said, "Claire, I did not choose this moment. You did." Because here is something I learned very late in life. Sometimes people do not mind you being family as long as you are useful. They want your money. They want your house. They want your memories. They want your recipes, your old silver, your dead husband's name, and the quiet respect your life has earned. But they do not want you visible. They do not want you honored. They do not want you asking questions. And they certainly do not want you keeping records. But I kept records, and that changed everything. Before I tell you what happened at that reception, let me tell you where it really starts. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 72 years old. I live in a white two-story house on Maple Bend Road, just outside a small town in Ohio. It is not a fancy house. It does not have a wine cellar or heated floors or one of those kitchens people photograph for magazines. But it has good bones. That is what my husband Robert used to say. Good bones. He said it about houses. He said it about people. And when we bought that place 38 years ago, he stood in the front yard, looked up at the sagging porch roof and said, "Evie, this house has good bones. We just need to love it long enough." So we did. We painted the shutters ourselves. We planted hydrangeas by the front steps. Robert planted an oak tree in the backyard when our daughter Claire was 6 years old. He told her, "By the time you are grown, this tree will know all your secrets." Claire laughed and hugged his leg. That house held everything. Birthday cakes, sick nights, Christmas mornings, school projects spread across the dining table, college acceptance letters, arguments, apologies, Robert's final months, and the long silence after his funeral, when I would walk from room to room just to hear the floorboards answer me. If you have ever lived in a house that held your whole life, you understand. A house is not just walls. It is memory with a roof over it. Claire never understood that. Or maybe she did once when she was little. But by the time she reached her 40s, she had begun looking at my home the way some people look at old furniture. Useful if restored. Valuable if sold. Embarrassing if left as it is. That was the first warning, though I did not recognize it then. She would come over and say things like, "Mom, this place is getting to be a lot for you." Or, "You don't need 4 bedrooms." Or, "Do you know what houses in this neighborhood are selling for now?" Once, while we were cleaning out the hall closet, she held up Robert's old fishing jacket and said, "You can't keep everything forever." I said, "I'm not keeping everything, I'm keeping some things." She rolled her eyes. "You get sentimental about objects." I looked at the jacket in her hands. It still smelled faintly of cedar and winter. "No," I said. "I get sentimental about love." She did not answer. She just folded it badly and placed it in the wrong box. That was Claire in those years. Not evil. Not heartless every minute. That would be too easy. She still called on my birthday. She still brought flowers on Mother's Day. She still sent photos from vacations. But somewhere along the way, love became mixed with impatience, and impatience became entitlement. She would correct my wording in front of people. "Mum, nobody says that anymore." She would sigh if I printed something instead of opening it on my phone. "Why do you need paper for everything?" She would complain about my clothes. Please don't wear that cardigan to dinner. It makes you look older. I remember looking at her once and saying, Claire, I am older. She said, you don't have to lean into it. That one stayed with me. You don't have to lean into it. As if aging was a bad habit. As if the years that raised her were something I should apologize for. Still, I swallowed most of it. Mothers do that. We tell ourselves they are busy. They are stressed. They do not mean it. They are just trying to make their way in a world harder than the one we knew. We explain away the sharp edges until one day we realize we are bleeding from places we never named. Claire met Aaron Whitman at a hospital fundraiser. Aaron was handsome in a quiet way. Tall, thoughtful, with kind eyes, and the kind of politeness that felt learned from good people, not polished for display. His family was wealthy. Not just comfortable. Wealthy. His father, Thomas Whitman, owned medical office buildings across 3 counties. His mother, Lydia, served on committees, boards, and charity councils. She wore pearls during the day and had the kind of voice that could make "how nice" sound like a court ruling. When Claire told me she was engaged, I cried. Real tears. Happy tears. Painful tears, too, because joy after loss always has an empty chair beside it. Robert had been gone 8 years by then. And for one wild second, when Claire held out her hand and showed me the ring, I thought of him standing in our kitchen, pretending not to cry, saying, Our baby's getting married, Evie. Claire smiled when I cried, but only for a moment. Then she said, Mum, I want the wedding to be elegant, really elegant, not too emotional. Not too emotional. That was her first rule. The second was that everything had to photograph well. The third was that Aaron's family should feel comfortable. I learned very quickly that comfortable meant impressed. The venue was called The Willows at Briar Lake, a restored estate with stone steps, high windows, pale gardens, and prices that made my stomach tighten. Claire sent me the website. Isn't it perfect? She asked. I looked at the photos. It was beautiful, yes. But beautiful in a way that seemed designed for strangers to admire. I said, It looks expensive. She laughed. Oh, Mom, don't start. I had not started anything. I had simply noticed. At first, Claire told me Aaron's family was handling most of the wedding. They're used to this kind of thing, she said. This kind of thing. As if weddings came in social classes. I said, Your father and I saved some money for your wedding. Her eyes softened at the mention of Robert, then sharpened again. I know, Mom, and that means a lot. But let's not make everything about Dad. I don't want the wedding to feel sad. That hurt, but I nodded. Because I had learned that if I reacted to every hurt, Claire accused me of making things emotional. So I saved my tears for when she left. Robert had started a wedding fund for Claire when she was 7. He called it her Someday Fund. Every few months he added something to it. A bonus, a tax refund, money from repairing a neighbor's deck, sometimes just $20. When Claire was small, he would tell her, One day, if you choose to get married, your old dad is buying something pretty. She would say, A pony? He would laugh and say, Maybe napkins. When he got sick, he asked me to sit with him one evening. It was November. Cold rain against the windows. He had a blanket over his knees, and his hands looked thinner than they should have. He gave me a sealed envelope. On the front, in his slanted handwriting, it said, For Claire, on her wedding day. I touched the envelope and looked at him. He said, Don't open it early. I won't. And don't let money become a substitute for love. I remember that sentence exactly. Not because I understood it then, because I did not. I thought he meant not to spend too much on flowers. Later, I understood he meant something far deeper. After he died, I placed that envelope in my dresser drawer under my winter scarves. For 8 years, I did not open it. Sometimes, when Claire was too busy to visit, I would touch the drawer handle and think about it. But I kept my promise. The wedding planning started politely enough. Then the calls began. First, it was the florist. Mum, the florist needs a deposit by Friday. Aaron and I are trying not to put everything on credit. Could you help just this once? It was $3,800. I paid it. Then the photographer. Then the cake design fee. Then part of the hotel block because Claire said her bridesmaids were stretched thin. Then the rehearsal dinner deposit. Then a catering advance because the venue has weird rules. Each time, she sounded embarrassed to ask. Each time, I told myself this was what family did. Each time, I gave quietly. I did not post about it. I did not tell Aaron. I did not tell Lydia Whitman. I did not ask to be thanked in a speech. I only wanted my daughter to feel supported on a day her father should have lived to see. But here is what I did not know then. Claire was accepting my help in private while allowing other people to believe I had given almost nothing. And that was only the beginning, because the first lie was about money. The second lie was about my mind. And the third one was about my house. 2 weeks before the wedding, Claire came to my house with a cream-colored folder and the expression of someone about to make disrespect sound reasonable. I had made tea. She did not drink it. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had helped her with spelling words and college essays, and pulled out a seating chart. "Mum," she said, "I need to talk to you about the ceremony." I looked at her hands. She was smoothing the paper again and again. "All right," I said. She took a breath. "So, the front row is going to be a little complicated." There it was. Complicated. People use that word when they do not want to say unfair. She explained that Aaron's parents had a large family presence. His grandmother needed easy access. Some important guests were coming. The photographer had planned certain shots. Then she said, "So I think it would be better if you sat in the second row." For a moment, the kitchen seemed too quiet. "The second row?" I asked. "You'll still be close." I looked down at the chart. My name was printed neatly. Evelyn Carter. Second row, not mother of the bride. Not Mom. Just my name. I asked, "Where would your father have sat?" Claire's face tightened instantly. "Mum, please don't make this emotional. If you have ever been wounded and then blamed for bleeding, you know what that sentence feels like." I folded my hands in my lap. I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not ask her to remember who stayed up with her when Robert died and she could not sleep. I simply said, "If that is what you want." Relief passed over her face so quickly, it almost made me ashamed for her. "Thank you for understanding." But I did not understand. I only saw. And seeing is different. The next morning, she called before 9. I was on the porch watering a fern that refuses to die, which is something I admire in plants and people. "Mom," she said, "there's a small issue with the reception balance." I closed my eyes. How small? The venue needs the final payment, and with the upgrades and guest count adjustments, it's more than we expected. "How much?" A pause. Then she said, 26,000. I sat down slowly. $26,000. After everything already paid. After the florist. After the photographer. After the cake. After the hotel rooms. After Robert's fund had already been touched more than once. I said, "Claire, I thought Aaron's parents were covering the reception." "They covered the venue rental," she said quickly. "But not the food and beverage minimum, and not the extras. Mom, please. You always said family comes first." Family comes first. The same family that could not give me the front row. The same family that wanted my money at the counter and my body behind the important people. I almost said no. A clean no. A good no. But something in me held still. Maybe it was wisdom. Maybe it was Robert. Maybe it was the old printer in my spare room waiting like a witness. I said, "Send me the paperwork." Claire exhaled. "Oh, thank you." I knew you'd understand. There was that word again. Understand. But what Claire did not know was that I was not asking for paperwork so I could pay. I was asking because paperwork does not forget. People forget. People twist. People say, "That is not what I meant." People say, "You are remembering it wrong." Paper wait. That afternoon, the invoices arrived. Then the venue balance sheet. Then a revised vendor list. Then an email from the planner. I printed everything. Claire hated my printer. She once said it sounded like a lawnmower and belonged in a museum. That day, page by page, that noisy old machine gave me back my dignity. The first thing I noticed was the payment history. Florist deposit, paid. Photography deposit, paid. Cake design fee, paid. Hotel block guarantee, paid. Rehearsal dinner reservation, paid. Catering deposit, paid. Several vendor transfers, paid. I knew those numbers. Some had come directly from my checking account. Some from money I had transferred to Claire when she said she was short. Some from Robert's wedding fund. I took out a yellow legal pad and began adding. By the time I finished, the total was just over $31,000. $31,000. Quietly, without a front row seat, without a thank you, without my name spoken in any room where it mattered. Then I saw the second thing. Responsible party, Evelyn Carter. I frowned. That was not what I had agreed to. I had agreed to help with specific costs. I had not agreed to become a blank check for a reception where I was being treated like an afterthought. I called the venue. A young woman named Marissa answered. When I gave my name, her voice brightened. "Yes, Mrs. Carter. We have you listed as the responsible financial contact for the reception balance." "For the entire balance?" I asked. "That is what we have in the file." I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "Please send me whatever documentation shows that." She hesitated. "I can send the contract notes and email history attached to the account." "Please do." When those emails arrived, I made a cup of tea. I never drank it. The first few messages were ordinary. Menu selections, guest count, timeline. Then I saw a message from Claire to the planner. "My mum is getting older and sometimes confused about money, so please run payment questions through me first. She wants to help, but large numbers make her anxious." I read it once. Then again. Then I placed my hand flat on the desk because the room seemed to move slightly. Confused. That word is dangerous when placed beside an older woman's name. It can turn wisdom into decline. It can turn caution into weakness. It can turn questions into symptoms. I had managed Robert's medical bills through 2 insurance appeals. I had handled probate. I had paid taxes, negotiated repairs, balanced accounts, and kept a household running through grief. But my daughter told strangers I was confused because it gave her control. That was the moment the folder began. I found a plain brown folder in Robert's old desk. The tab was blank. I placed the payment history inside. Then the email. Then the bank transfers. Then the texts where Claire asked for money. Then the venue notes. Not angrily, not with shaking hands. Calmly. Because sometimes the quietest woman in the room is not helpless. Sometimes she is collecting proof. And if you have ever had someone try to make you doubt your own memory, you know the relief of seeing the truth printed in black ink. But that was not the worst thing I found. Not even close. 3 days later, I attended a bridal lunch downtown. I did not want to go. Claire insisted. "It'll mean a lot," she said. What she meant was, it would look bad if I stayed home. So I wore my soft blue dress, Robert's pearl earrings, and a small smile I had practiced in the mirror. Lydia Whitman was seated at the center of the table when I arrived. She greeted me with a polite hug that touched neither heart nor shoulder. Claire was laughing with her bridesmaids. I sat near the end. For most of the lunch, I listened. Signature cocktails, welcome bags, champagne wall, photo timeline, late night food station, specialty linens. Words that sounded expensive because they were. Then Lydia leaned toward another woman and said, not quite softly enough, Claire has done beautifully managing all this. It must be difficult planning a wedding without much support from the bride's side. The bride's side. I looked at Claire. She heard it. I know she heard it. Her smile flickered. Then she looked away. She did not say, my mother has helped. She did not say, actually, Mum covered several deposits. She did not say, please don't speak about her that way. She said nothing. There are betrayals that arrive as words. And there are betrayals that arrive as silence. That one was silence. After lunch, Claire walked me to my car. I said, Lydia seems to believe I have not helped. Claire sighed. Mom, please don't take everything personally. I paid the florist. Can we not do this here? I paid the photographer. Mom, I paid part of the catering. Her voice lowered. And I appreciate that, but you don't need to announce it. There it was. My help was welcome. The truth about my help was embarrassing. That night, I added a handwritten note to the folder. Claire allowed Lydia to say I had not supported the wedding. Claire did not correct her. I dated it. Some people might call that cold. It was not cold. It was protection. When someone starts rewriting your place in the family, you must keep track of the original story. The next day, Claire came by to borrow some family items for what she called a heritage display. She wanted my grandmother's recipe cards, 2 silver trays, an old framed photo of Robert's parents, and the small Bible my mother carried on her wedding day. It'll make the reception feel personal, she said. At first, I was touched. Then she showed me the display mock-up on her tablet. There were my family recipe cards scanned onto cream paper. There were the silver trays. There was a line from Robert's favorite hymn, printed in gold. At the top were the words, family traditions that shaped the bride. Not my mother's recipes. Not Evelyn's family. Not Robert's hymn. Just floating traditions. As if they had appeared from the air. I said, Where is your father's photo going? Claire's eyes shifted. We decided not to do the memorial table. You decided? It made the room feel too sad. Your father saved for this wedding. I know, Mom. He would have wanted to be remembered. And I want to get through my wedding day without crying in front of everyone. Everyone. By everyone, she meant me. I picked up the recipe cards from the table. Claire frowned. What are you doing? I'll bring these myself. Why? Because they belong to me. She stared at me. For the first time, Claire looked at me not like a soft place to land, but like a locked door she had expected to open. That evening, I went upstairs to my dresser. I opened the top drawer. Robert's envelope was still under the scarves. For Claire, on her wedding day, I picked it up. My hands trembled. I did not open it. I slid it into the brown folder. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and cried. Not because of the front row. Not because of the money. Because my daughter had removed her father's photo while using his memory to ask me for checks. And this is where the story turned again. 2 days before the wedding, I received a letter in my mailbox. It had my name on it, but the first line mentioned Claire. It came from a real estate office. At first, I thought it was junk. Then I saw my address. Maple Bend Road. My house. The letter thanked Claire for asking about market conditions in my neighborhood. It referenced a possible downsizing timeline following the wedding and honeymoon period. It mentioned that the sale of my home could free up family resources to help Claire, and Aaron purchased their first house. I read that sentence standing in my hallway. Free up family resources. My home. Robert's oak tree. My porch. My kitchen window. My grief. My life. Reduced to family resources. I sat down on the stairs. There are moments when your body understands before your mind catches up. My hands went cold. Then I remembered all the little comments. This place is getting to be a lot for you. You don't need 4 bedrooms. Do you know what houses are selling for? Where do you keep important papers, Mom? Have you ever thought about one-level living? Each comment had seemed small by itself. Together, they became a map. And the map led straight to my front door. That same evening, I found another piece by accident. Claire had forwarded me a wedding timeline, but below it was an older calendar invitation in the thread. Family planning conversation, Mom's next stage. Scheduled 3 weeks after the honeymoon. Attendees: Claire, Aaron, financial planner, senior transition consultant. The note said, discuss home equity options, simplifying assets, possible downsizing, reducing emotional resistance. Reducing emotional resistance. That phrase was so polished it nearly hid its cruelty. It made pressure sound caring. It made greed sound practical. It made my love for my own home sound like a condition that needed managing. I printed it. Into the folder it went. Then I called my attorney. Her name is Helen Morris. She had helped me after Robert died. Calm voice, sharp eyes. The kind of woman who could read a document and hear the lie breathing under it. When I told her I needed to see her urgently, she said, bring everything. So I did. I brought the folder. She read the venue paperwork first. Then the email calling me confused. Then the real estate letter. Then the meeting invitation. She did not gasp. Good attorneys rarely gasp. They read the things that make other people fall apart, then ask where the signatures are. Finally, she looked at me and said, Evelyn, does Claire have any financial authority? Only emergency access, I said. Years ago, after Robert died, she is listed as backup on a few things. Helen nodded. We are going to clean that up. Clean that up. I liked that. Not attack. Not punish. Clean. So we cleaned. We updated my power of attorney. We removed Claire from emergency financial access. We placed my home into a living trust with clear instructions. No sale unless I initiated it while legally competent. No transfer. No pressure through family meetings. No quiet paperwork behind my back. We updated my will. We named a neutral executor. We added language about coercion. Helen explained every page before I signed. And I signed with a steady hand. When it was done, she made copies. 1 set stayed with her. 1 set came home with me. The trust certification went into the folder. On the drive back, I did not feel powerful. I felt heartbroken. People say boundaries are empowering. Sometimes they are. But sometimes they feel like locking a door against someone whose baby shoes are still in your attic. Still, heartbreak is not a reason to surrender. The morning of the wedding was bright and cool. A perfect September day. The kind of day that makes people say God blessed the weather, even when human beings are busy hurting each other under the sunshine. I woke before 6. For a few minutes, I stayed in bed, listening to the house. The old hum of the refrigerator downstairs. The settling of floorboards. A bird near the gutter. Robert's side of the bed had been empty for 8 years. But that morning it felt newly empty. I dressed slowly. Navy dress. Pearl earrings. Low heels. Robert's wedding band on a chain beneath my dress. Then I picked up the brown folder. I almost left it on the table. That is the truth. There was still a mother in me who wanted to believe Claire would see me, hug me, apologize, move me back where I belonged, and make the folder unnecessary. A mother's hope is stubborn, even when it has evidence. But I took it. The willows at Briar Lake looked exactly the way Claire wanted it to look. Elegant. Soft cream flowers. White chairs in perfect rows. A string quartet near the garden. Guests in polished shoes and careful smiles. Near the entrance, I found the seating board. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. My name was not in the second row. It was in the fourth row, left side, seat 6, behind a stone column, not completely hidden, just hidden enough. That is how certain people disrespect you, not boldly enough for strangers to object, clearly enough for you to know. An usher came over. Mrs. Carter? Yes. I can show you to your seat. I followed him. The front row was full. Aaron's parents, his grandmother, 2 relatives I did not know. And at the aisle seat where the mother of the bride should have been sat, Lydia Whitman's sister. She smiled politely as I passed. I sat behind the pillar. A woman beside me leaned over and whispered, "Are you family?" I smiled. "I'm the bride's mother." Her face changed. Only a little. But pity has a way of whispering even when no one speaks. The music began. Everyone stood. Claire appeared at the top of the aisle. And for one moment, all the hurt fell away. She was beautiful. My daughter was beautiful. The sunlight touched her veil. Her dress moved like water. Her face looked calm, almost peaceful. I saw the baby who slept with one fist under her cheek. The little girl Robert taught to ride a bicycle. The teenager who once cried in my lap after her first heartbreak. The young woman who called me from college to ask how long to boil eggs. Then she passed my row. She did not look at me. Not once. I sat down before everyone else. The folder rested across my knees, and something inside me finally stopped waiting. The ceremony was lovely. Well-funded things often are. The vows were tender. Aaron cried a little. When the minister spoke of family, Lydia dabbed her eyes in the front row. I watched from behind the pillar and thought how strange it was that some people are honored simply because they occupy the right seat. After the ceremony came photographs. I stood near the garden wall. No one called me. A coordinator glanced at her clipboard and said, "Immediate family only for this round." I said, "I am immediate family." She looked startled. "Oh, let me check." She walked away. She did not come back. I stood there for 12 minutes. Then I went inside. If you have ever stood at the edge of a family moment you helped create, you know humiliation has a temperature. It is cold. It settles first in the hands. The reception hall glowed with candles and flowers. Near the cake was the heritage display. My grandmother's silver trays were there. Not the 2 Claire had asked for. 3. She must have taken the 3rd months earlier from my dining cabinet. Beside them were printed copies of my recipe cards and a framed line from Robert's favourite hymn. The sign above them read, "Family traditions that shape the bride." I stood in front of that table for a long time. They wanted my history, not my seat. They wanted Robert's hymn, not Robert's grief. They wanted the shine of my silver, not the woman who polished it for 40 years. I took a photograph with my phone. Not to post, to remember. Then Aaron found me near the windows. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "I'm glad you're here." I believed him. That made it hurt more. "Thank you, Aaron." He shifted his drink from one hand to the other. "I know weddings can be complicated." I smiled faintly. "There's that word again." He looked confused. "I just mean, I know there has been tension around expenses." Claire said, "You were uncomfortable with some things." I studied his face. He did not know. That was clear. He thought he was smoothing over a minor family disagreement. He had no idea he was standing in the middle of a story Claire had written without giving him the ending. I said, "Aaron, did you know I paid the florist deposit?" He blinked. "No." "The photographer?" "No." "The catering deposit?" His expression shifted. "I thought Claire handled those." "She handled asking," I said. Before he could answer, Claire appeared beside him. "There you are," she said brightly. Her eyes moved to the folder under my arm. "What's that?" "Paperwork." "For what?" "For clarity." She gave a small laugh. "Mom prints everything. She doesn't trust phones." I looked at Aaron. No, I trust records. That was when the wedding planner approached. Her name was Janine. She had a headset behind one ear and the face of a woman paid to keep disasters invisible. Claire, she said softly, we need to settle the final balance before dinner service begins. Claire's fingers tightened around Aaron's arm. Of course, my mum is handling that. There it was. My mum is handling that. Not my mom has already helped. Not we need to discuss this. Not thank you. Just a public assignment of my wallet. I looked at Claire. Then at Janine. Let's sit somewhere. Claire's smile stiffened. Mum, can you just sign? We're on a timeline. No, I said. We are on a truth line now. Aaron looked at me. Janine looked at her tablet as though it might rescue her. I walked to a small round table near the side of the hall. Claire followed. Aaron followed. Janine followed. And because people with money can smell tension from across a ballroom, Lydia and Thomas Whitman arrived too. Is everything all right? Lydia asked. Claire said quickly, It's fine. Mom is just being difficult. There it was. The old word in a new dress. Difficult. I placed the folder on the table. No slam. No scene. Just down. Then I opened it. The first page was the payment summary. I turned it toward Janine. Please confirm these payments. Janine looked down. Yes, those were received. I turned the page toward Aaron. Florist deposit. Photography deposit. Cake design fee. Hotel block guarantee. Rehearsal dinner reservation. Catering deposit. Several smaller vendor transfers. Aaron picked up the page. The total, I said, is just over $31,000. Lydia's eyes moved to Claire. Thomas removed his glasses. Aaron looked at his bride. Claire, I didn't know this. Claire laughed sharply. I was going to explain later. No, I said. You were going to let people believe I had not helped. Lydia straightened. I don't think anyone meant. I turned to her gently. At lunch, you said Claire planned this wedding without much support from the bride's side. My daughter heard you. She did not correct you. Lydia's mouth closed. It is hard to argue with a calm woman who brings dates. Claire whispered, Mum, stop. But I had stopped too many times already. I turned the next page. This is an email from Claire to the planner stating that I am older and sometimes confused about money. Aaron's face changed. Thomas said, very quietly, Claire. Claire's cheeks flushed. That is out of context. I looked at her. The context is in the folder. She snapped. This is exactly why I did not want drama today. I nodded. Then you should not have built today on a lie. That silenced her for a moment. Then I pulled out the seating charts. This is the original chart, mother of the bride, front row, aisle seat. I placed the revised chart beside it. This is the final chart, fourth row, behind a pillar. Claire said, the planner had to balance the layout. I turned the email toward Aaron. Move Mom back, she'll understand. It photographs better this way. No one spoke. That sentence did what my tears never could. It made the insult visible. Aaron looked at Claire. Why would you do that? Claire's voice rose. Because I was under pressure. Because your family is formal. Because Mum makes everything emotional. Because I needed one day where things looked right. I felt that one. Things looked right. I said, Claire, I buried your father, paid the mortgage, handled his medical bills, raised you through grief, and still showed up today with pearls in my ears and love in my heart. What exactly about me looked wrong? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then she found another weapon. You promised you would help. I did. You said family comes first. I believed that. I still do. Then why are you doing this to me? I looked at her white dress, her trembling hands, her expensive flowers. I am not doing this to you. I am refusing to keep doing this to myself. Janine cleared her throat softly. I'm sorry, but we do need to determine the payment arrangement. Of course, I said. I turned to the next section. These are the expenses I agreed to cover. These are the items added later under my name without my written approval. I read them one by one. Premium bar extension, champagne wall, late night food station, additional floral arch, custom linens, specialty dessert display, extra transportation. Claire interrupted. You said you wanted the day to be beautiful. I did, but help is not the same as surrender. You are twisting everything. No, I am untwisting it. Thomas Whitman gave the smallest nod. Claire saw it. So did I. That little nod shifted the room. Because now the truth was no longer only mine. Janine reviewed the paperwork. These upgrades were confirmed by Claire, she said carefully. But billed under my responsibility, I said. Yes. Then correct that. Claire's voice sharpened. You can't do this now. I looked at her. You did this now, when you moved me behind a pillar and asked me to pay before dinner. Aaron stepped slightly away from her. Not dramatically. Just 2 inches. But sometimes 2 inches is the beginning of a whole truth. I almost stopped there. I truly did. A mother still wants to protect her child, even when that child has hurt her. But then Claire looked at Aaron and said, She gets like this when she's overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. After confused. After emotional. After difficult. I reached into the folder again. Then let's make sure everyone understands why I am overwhelmed. I took out the real estate letter. Claire's face went pale. What is that? I looked at her. Would you like to explain it? Aaron frowned. Explain what? I placed the letter on the table. It appears Claire contacted a real estate office about my home. Aaron looked from me to Claire. Your house? The house on Maple Bend Road, I said. Claire spoke quickly. It was just research. For what? Aaron asked. For her future, Claire said. Your mother is always talking about how hard the house is. I said the upstairs window sticks. Claire's lips pressed together. Thomas picked up the letter and read the phrase aloud, softly. Potential downsizing timeline, following wedding and honeymoon period. Aaron stared at Claire. You talked to a realtor about her house. Claire said. I was planning ahead. I placed the calendar invitation beside it. Family planning conversation, Mom's next stage. Aaron read the notes. Home equity options. Simplifying assets. Possible downsizing. Reducing emotional resistance. His face changed completely. Claire, he said, I was invited to this. She swallowed. I was going to explain. You told me it was about helping your mum organize paperwork. I looked at Aaron. Now you know why I like paper. Claire's voice shook. Mom, that house is too much for you. There it was. The sentence behind all the others. Too much for you. My house was too much. My money was not. My grief was too much. Robert's wedding fund was not. My presence was too much. My family silver was not. I took out the legal documents. This is a certification of trust, I said. Claire stared at it. My home is now protected in a living trust. My power of attorney has been updated. My executor has been changed. Old emergency access has been removed. No one can sell, transfer, pressure, pledge, or make decisions around that house without my direct legal consent while I am competent. I looked straight at my daughter. And I am competent. No one moved. Not Claire. Not Aaron. Not Lydia. Not Thomas. Not Janine. Even the noise of the reception seemed to fade around us. Claire whispered, You went to a lawyer? Yes. Because of me? I answered honestly. Yes. For the first time all day, she looked wounded. Not angry. Wounded. But I had to remind myself that the wound was not caused by my boundary. It was caused by the truth meeting her plan. Janine asked carefully, Mrs. Carter, what would you like to do about the balance? I said. I will pay the amount I originally agreed to pay, directly to the venue. I will not pay for unauthorized upgrades. I will not reimburse charges added under my name without approval. I will not be responsible for a reception where I was hidden, misrepresented, and financially exposed. Thomas Whitman said, That seems fair. Claire turned toward him. You don't understand. He put his glasses back on. I understand documents. That sentence ended something. Janine began recalculating. The champagne wall was removed. The late-night food station was cancelled. The extra floral arch was reduced. The premium bar extension was shortened. The custom linens stayed only if Claire and Aaron paid the difference. Each change sounded small, but each one removed a layer of the performance Claire had built on top of my silence. And still, I did not feel happy. That is what people misunderstand about quiet justice. It does not always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like finally putting down a burden you wish your own child had never handed you. Then Claire made her final mistake. She wiped her face and said, Dad would have wanted you to help me. The room changed. Not because everyone knew Robert. Most did not. But everyone heard how she used him. A dead father, placed on the table like another unpaid bill. For the first time, my hands trembled. I reached into the back of the folder and took out the sealed envelope. Claire saw the handwriting. Her face broke. What is that? Your father's letter. You opened it? No. I held it for a moment. He wrote it before he died. It was meant for your wedding day. Her voice became small. Mom, I was going to give it to you privately. I was going to sit beside you and tell you how proud he would have been. But you removed his photo because it looked too sad, and then used his name whenever you wanted me to give more. Tears slid down her face. I said, So if you want to tell me what your father would have wanted, let him speak for himself. I handed the envelope to Aaron, not Claire. I think I did that because I needed someone in that room to read it without using it. Aaron opened it carefully. The paper was folded twice. Robert's handwriting leaned slightly to the right. Aaron began reading. My dear Claire, if you are reading this, then your wedding day has come, and I am not standing where I always hoped I would be. I have imagined walking you down the aisle more times than I can count. Since I may not get that gift, I want to leave you something else. Money is easy to misunderstand. People think it proves love. It does not. Money can help with a meal, a dress, flowers, music, and a room full of people. But it cannot create honor where honor is missing. Your mother is the reason you will reach this day with a full heart. She will be the one who stays when I cannot. She will remember what you loved as a child. She will know when your smile is real. She will carry pieces of me that no photograph can hold. If any money I saved helps with this day, let it be used in a way that honors the family that brought you here. Do not let beauty become pride. Do not let celebration become performance. And never treat your mother as less important than the people you are trying to impress. A wedding is one day. A mother is a lifetime. Love. Dad. Aaron stopped reading. The room was silent. Claire cried then. Not angry tears. Not embarrassed tears. The broken kind. For a moment, I saw my little girl again. The child who missed her father. The young woman who maybe had been running from grief so long that she mistook status for safety. But pain explains behavior. It does not excuse it. Claire reached toward me. Mum. I stepped back gently. Not cruelly. Just enough. I love you, I said. I will always love you, but I will not fund my own erasure. There was nothing useful left to say. The reception continued. Smaller. Quieter. Still beautiful, though not in the way Claire had planned. Dinner was served. People ate. Music played. The marriage still happened. That is another thing people need to understand. When you stop overgiving, the world does not end. Only the illusion does. I stayed through the first dance. Then I prepared to leave. Aaron found me near the doors. He looked tired. Older than he had that morning. "I am sorry," he said. I nodded. "I believe you. I didn't know." "I know. I should have asked more questions." "Yes," I said gently. "You should have." He accepted that. That made me respect him. Then Lydia approached. Her posture was not as perfect now. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "I owe you an apology." I waited. I repeated an assumption. "I should not have spoken about you that way. It was not everything, but it was something." I said, "Thank you." Thomas shook my hand. "You handled yourself with grace." I thought about that word. Grace. People often call it grace when a woman refuses to scream. But sometimes grace is not softness. Sometimes grace is opening a folder instead of opening a wound wider than necessary. At the door, Claire stood alone. Her veil was gone. Her makeup was smudged. For the first time all day, she looked less like a bride in a photograph and more like my daughter. "Mum," she said. I stopped. "Are you leaving?" "Yes." "Can we talk?" "Not tonight." Her face crumpled. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." That sentence comes often after consequences arrive. I said, "I know." She looked relieved. Then I finished. "But you meant each step." She closed her eyes. I touched her cheek. A mother's hand remembers, even when her heart is tired. "I hope you have a good marriage, Claire. Truly. But if you build it on appearances, you will spend your life afraid of the truth." Then I left. The night air was cool. My car was parked beneath a maple tree, just beginning to turn red. I sat behind the wheel and placed the folder on the passenger seat. For a long time, I did not start the engine. I cried. Quietly. Not because I regretted what I had done. Because doing the right thing does not protect you from the sadness of needing to do it. When I got home, the porch light was still on. The house stood exactly where I had left it. Robert's oak tree moved in the wind. The kitchen window reflected the moon. The old printer sat in the little room, silent now. Robert's chair waited by the front window. My home had not become too much for me. It had become exactly enough. I went upstairs and took off my pearls. Then I opened the folder one last time. I removed Robert's letter and placed it in a separate envelope. The legal documents went into my safe. The receipts stayed in the folder. Not because I planned to use them again, because I wanted to remember what I learned. Love without boundaries can become a place where selfish people come to rest. 3 weeks passed before Claire called. I let the first 2 calls go unanswered. Not to punish her. To give myself time to hear her voice without losing my own. On the 3rd call, I answered. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Claire said, "Mum, I was ashamed of the wrong person." I sat down slowly. That sentence did not repair everything. No sentence can. But it was the first honest thing she had given me in a long time. She cried. She told me Aaron had been angry. Not loud angry, deeply hurt. She told me they had postponed looking for a house. She told me she had cancelled the meeting with the financial planner. She told me she had gone back through old pictures of Robert and found one of him holding her under the oak tree. Then she said, "I don't know why I became like that." I looked toward the window. The tree was bare now. I said, "Maybe you thought looking successful would make you feel safe." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "Maybe." I did not forgive everything that day. Forgiveness is not a light switch. It is a door that opens only as far as trust has repaired the hinges. But I listened. That was enough for one day. Months have passed since the wedding. Claire and Aaron come by sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. And when they do, Claire knocks. That may sound small. It is not. She used to walk in with her old key. That key no longer works. The first time she realized that, she looked at me. I said, "New locks." She nodded. No argument. No tears. just understanding. We are rebuilding slowly. Not the old relationship. That one was not as healthy as I wanted to believe. We are building something more honest. She has apologized for the seating chart, for the money, for calling me confused, for the real estate letter, for using Robert's name, for letting people think I had not helped. Some apologies I accepted. Some I am still holding carefully. Trust takes longer than regret. As for my house, it is still mine. The hydrangeas will bloom again in June. The porch still creaks. The printer still sounds terrible. And Robert's chair still catches the afternoon light. Sometimes I sit there with tea and think about the front row. Not with bitterness, with clarity. Because the front row is not always a chair at a wedding. Sometimes the front row is the place people give you in their lives. Sometimes they want your labor in the back room, your money at the counter, your signature on the bill, your memories on the display table, and your body behind a pillar. And sometimes you have to stand up quietly and say no. No, I am not confused. No, I am not difficult. No, I am not selfish for protecting the home I built. No, I will not pay to disappear. If you have ever been treated like a burden by someone who benefited from your sacrifice, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not unstable because you ask questions. You are not old-fashioned because you keep records. You are not cruel because you set a boundary. And you are not unloving because you finally stop making yourself smaller for people who have grown comfortable taking more. My daughter thought the folder would contain a check. Instead, it contained the mother she forgot I still was. And that day, I did not lose my place in the front row. I finally stopped begging for it. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment and tell me, have you ever had to set a painful boundary with someone you loved? And if you believe calmness can be stronger than shouting, subscribe for more stories like this. Because sometimes justice does not arrive with anger. Sometimes it arrives in a plain brown folder, carried by a mother who finally remembers what she is worth.